Right. So you two, Wagner and Felm, you had just come home to Ingvik, and you had been greeted by some people telling you that the Karl was dead, that he had passed in his sleep. And there would be people kind of all around, pretty upset about this, like walking around the streets and stuff. And as you kind of make your way up into the town itself, you would see that it's pretty busy. That there is like, not, I wouldn't call it a mob, but like a collection of people who are standing outside the longhouse looking for guidance and answers and whatnot. Um, and you would see that Isvald and Wisla are here. They had been told earlier, they were not as far away, and they had come straight away. And you would see Arnvid is standing on this sort of little platform or whatever, and he's like talking to the people and he's trying to calm them down. And you can see that there's people all around. Again, not quite a mob yet, but there's that sort of tension in the air of like lots of people who are gathered in one place and they want answers and they're not getting them. And Arnvid says, "Our Karl Yngvar the Old, beloved of Freya, favorite of Freyr, he has taken the journey to Valhalla, and where he awaits the All-Father's side, drinking from curved horns until the final battle. Go back to your homes. Funerary arrangements will be organized. We will have visitors from the nearby Jarldoms, and we will send him off in the best way that we can. But until then, you must continue the work that you do that is essential to our survival here." And there's like a murmur that goes through the crowd of like, kind of like assent, but also like confusion. And one person shouts out, "But who's the Karl now?" And then people are like, "Yeah, yeah," and it gets loud again. And he like bangs his spear on the sort of wooden platform he's on. And he says, "We will need to hold a thing to decide who the new Karl is. You all know that. Ingvar left no children. The seer Havisla will interpret his estate and decide who is to inherit his wealth, what there is of it. And then we will hold a thing to select a new Karl. As you know, all free men and women are eligible to stand as Karl. Now go back to your homes and get back to work." And he kind of like takes a little step forward, and you can see that like he puts his hand on like the haft of his axe and like looks out over the crowd. This is obviously a man who's like dealt with this sort of situation a lot. You can tell that he like needs to look threatening. And most of the crowd start to disperse. A few of them kind of hang out, and you can see that like there's like pockets of people who are discussing like what's to happen next. But that's where you two would arrive anyway, riding your horses with Gorm and Kavarl, heading back in.
Vagnar's eyebrows would raise ever so slightly in surprise. Ever since he has been in servitude to these new masters of his, he has not been surprised once. He is surprised, however, that despite the death of this important Karl, the resolve of these people seems to be withholding. And he looks over to Phelim and says, "Gone for a few fucking days, look what happens."
Yeah, it was only a matter of time. Man was older than half the dirt in this town after all. That said, been 2 days, and townspeople are already at a stir. More days, as if the last few haven't been enough.
Aye.
So the final kind of groups start to disperse, and Arnvid would like come down off the stage and walk towards you. "You're back. Good." And he's talking directly to Phelim, not acknowledging that Wagner is there, basically. There has been an upheaval, as you can tell. The Karl is dead. We're trying to keep the people from panicking as best we can. But it's a bad time for this to happen. And the Karl, he didn't exactly leave any instructions. So the rest we're going to have to figure out ourselves.
You say that as if you and me weren't running half the business around here anyways. The people will be calm. Once the surprise is past, they'll settle into the routine. We'll get it worked out. We have to get it worked out. You say there's no time to spare anything else.
Maybe the seer will know. Cast some bones and see what you can find out. I don't know. For now, let's go inside.
Yes.
So he leads you into the longhouse past this like little platform that's been put up. And in the longhouse, there are like the remaining warriors, and you can see Isvald here and Visla. The Karl's body is like laid out on the table at the very, very back, usually where he would feast. It's been laid out there. It's like wrapped up, most of it, although his face is still visible. And Arnvid says, "All right, he's back," and he like gathers those people who like have a good voice or an important voice in the town, and decides, or like who decide what's going to happen next. So usually in this situation, he says, we send out word to the other Jarldoms so they can come and pay their respects. That's the proper form, but I'm not too sure that it's a good idea to broadcast that our Karl is dead in the situation that we're in.
I agree. We have to be practical right now. There's too much at stake, both within the Karldom and outside of it. If weakness is perceived, it could lead to bad things, either from the other Karls or from the north, neither of which we want right now, or neither of which we can afford to deal with.
And you suggest we send him to Valhalla with only those here, without the respect and the honor due a man of his status?
You know best, Seer, in this situation. I mean, my understanding is he's going to Valhalla anyway. It doesn't matter who's here. But I'm no expert.
Honor to the dead is important as best as it is. Honor to the living is more important. Protect them by being less overt. We're not in a state where we can take unnecessary risks.
Visna looks around the room. Some gaunt faces. It's not a wealthy place. There's not a lot of warriors here. She nods. Very well. That counsel seems to be wise.
Then again, the smith, who's important by the fact that he makes the metal things, it sits ill with me that the Jarl wouldn't know and wouldn't send him off, that the other Karls, he's been Karl longer than any of them. Longer than most of their fathers were Karls. This part of the world is Yngvar's part of the world. Everyone knows that.
It has been Yngvar's lot to rule here for many winters. And when we send word of the new Karl, I expect that the Jarl and the others will send their respects for Yngvar and for whoever the new Karl is as well. It is perhaps best in a time when we are uncertain as to when the raids will come, when we are concerned with the state of things, to wait until we have a more stable situation.
But it's the proper form that these people, these Karls and Jarls,
I
come and they
know.
tell stories over his body as he lies in the
Horn.
boat and he burns. That is what is correct.
If you think I do not want that, you are mistaken. But my duty, in the interim, is to the people. And Karl Yngvar's duty was to the people. In life as in death.
Isn't your duty to the gods? Isn't all of our duty to the gods?
And if we are all gone, who will offer them homage?
Whoever is here after us, we won't mind. We'll be drinking mead.
Normally, I'd agree, but unfortunately, I have reason to believe that danger is already closer than we would hope. While we were out, we came into contact with some Iskalfin reavers looking to take advantage already of this place's weakness. We were able to drive them away temporarily. This is only the beginning. We can't spare the noise that it would make. We will make sure that Karl is honored as best as we can. But I agree for now it should remain for us to do, not for the world. Just for now, while we can try to create some sort of stable situation.
It's not what the Karl would have done if you had died.
Wagner dares to speak up. And he looks at this man and he says, "If the Osculfin learn that you are weaker even than you were before, they will strike. They will come for you. You'll get no such rights if we're all fucking dead."
He like frowns and he looks around. You can see Arnavid is like nodding with him. He's like being convinced, but doesn't say anything.
So, if the protocol is typically to send out riders and then to wait for people to come, how long does that usually take?
It depends. Funeral like would go on for a long time. Like there would be like a week of like feasting or celebrating or whatever, you know. And then there'd be like the final ceremony, which is like to send him off in the boat, which would have to be done at the coast. You're not at the coast in Ingvik. But yeah, a long time. But it's like tradition to do that, to get everybody who like all of the luminaries of the surrounding area like should come and pay their respects, especially with like Yngvar being so old. Like everyone knows who he is, even if he wasn't like particularly great. He's like notable in the fact that he lived a very long time, and that all of the jarls and stuff around would have had dealings with him, even when they were kids or something, you know. So it would be traditional to like send out riders or even ravens, like the Iron Eye ravens, which you can buy, to send out messages that way.
Wagner is going to look over to Phelim and he says, "How do we ensure that the word of the late Karl's demise doesn't spread? Everyone that does know needs to be accounted for."
It's a fair point. Kind of looks around the table with all these people gathered. Has anybody sent word anywhere? Has anybody left the town since news is broken? Who knows so far?
What is your concern, Phelim? Do you think that one of us will run to the Esculfin? I think it's more likely that the outlaw here would.
Wagner looks you directly in the eyes and dismissively looks you up and down, and then looks to Phelim silently to await his response.
I didn't want to go into this, given everything that's happened with the Karl. Idalega was in talks with the Skulfin raiders, making a deal. The people on these lands are already talking to the Esculfin, whether you want them to or not. And the outlaw here killed one of them in a fair fight. He's done more for us against the Esculfin so far than anyone else, at least over the last few days.
And with that, Wagner turns once again to look at the Sather in the eyes.
So Idalega was in talks with the Iskelfin already. Arnvid is like pinching the bridge of his nose. He can't believe it. I don't think there's any way to hide this from anyone. I mean, it's been 2 days since the Karl is dead. Of course, people have left the town. Where they've gone, who knows? Maybe they've gone to other villages, most likely, or maybe they've gone hunting. But who knows? It's out there. The word is out.
Perhaps, maybe strangely enough, given what's passed, it might be safer for more people to know. We have the Jarl, other Karls here. There's no way the Esculfin would risk an attack. Well, we had so many people here. We could use that to buy time.
It's true. If the Jarl comes, he'll bring at least 30 men.
If knowledge of the news was more under wraps, then I think our original plan might fare better. But if people are already going to know, we might as well make it big enough of a scene that no one will mess with us while it's going on. We need time, that's it. And if that buys us more time, then I think it's a better choice.
And we can show strength by feasting for such a long time. Even if we don't really have the supplies for such, we can appear to have such.
Arnvid, choose the riders.
I will.
Phelim, is there any other news that you would have us know?
Other than the contact with the Esculfin from Idalega. Not sure, though. The Esculfin in contact with them were driven off, partially due to the death of one of their men. If we can rally support and somehow find men to help Idalega, I think we can win them back to our side, have more allies. There are people looking to turn sides. We need to give incentive for them not to do so.
Perhaps we can enter into talks with one of the other Karls while they are here.
If there's nothing else, Arnvit says.
Yeah, Phelim kind of like looks over to Vagnar, like, did I miss anything important that I didn't say?
Vagnar remembers that essentially the acts of Edelega as a whole were treacherous. They had stopped paying their dues to the Karl, but Vagnar hopes that what they did sent a message that will secure their attitudes long enough for deeds to be done here first. And he just gives Phelim like a curt nod. It's enough information for now.
So then Arvid leaves, heads outside, and you can see him like gathering people to ride off to give news. And yeah, the village is mostly productive. Like there are people occasionally who will like gather and be like, "Who do you think it's going to be?" Blah blah blah. But mostly like they're just like still at work. Is there anything you'd like to do over the next like 2 days it'll take before replies come back?
Actually, Vagnar, the thralls, the thralls as a community within this settlement, do they all work for different people throughout them? I'm guessing.
Yeah, and overall they're discouraged from gathering, which is like often the case with slave populations. It's like discouraged that they like gather without somebody there with them, so that they don't like talk about insurrection and whatnot. So there wouldn't necessarily be like a thrall leader or anything, you know?
No, of course. But what Vagnar is going to do, using the slight amount of notoriety that he gained when he spoke to them and scared the shit out of them by speaking about his skullfin and that and the like, he's gonna start familiarizing himself with which thralls serve who, and spend however long that'll take to do so.
Sure. So as in like who works for the smith and who works for like the...
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And who's going to be where and that kind of thing.
Okay, no problem.
It is his hope to use that as sort of like an information network of some type to sort of gauge what's going on in the settlement. Yeah.
Like overall, they're not very chatty. Many of them have had years of like slaps to the back of the head and kicks when they're, you know, and like food knocked out of their hands and like all this sort of abuse that like over years has like made them quite timid, most of them. Others like basically feel like they're a part of the community, like they've been here a long time, and they're treated well by their masters or whatever, and so they just feel like other people who live here. But yeah, there's nothing specific that stands out, but you get an impression that like overall, most of the thralls here are very obedient. And it's been like the work of everyone to keep that in line. And I think you probably realize that if it was you and you weren't you, you'd be obedient pretty quick as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's not making a show of being rebellious in any sense, really. He's more just taking the time to learn it now rather than later, and that's all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Isla would like to be setting up things for the funeral, gathering components for different wards and for the rites, making sure that the boat is made and for when they take it to the coast. And I do have a feature that's ear to the ground, which is I get rumors or information based on my appropriate passive ability checks at the beginning of a session.
Okay, cool.
So you can just message that to me if you'd like, or whatever.
Yeah, I think you would like notice with your perception that people are on edge, but they're pretending like they're not. You know, everyone's like still just working, and there's the threat of like the warriors who like occasionally walk by and disperse groups of people who are chatting. You would notice that there's like definitely a nervousness. You'd hear a lot of talk about who's going to be the next Karl, and lots of people think it's going to be the son of Karl Bjorn, who is like the other Karl, or the nearest Karl. People say a lot of good things about this guy, and he seems like a good candidate. There's lots of like stories about him that he's, you know, handsome and he's brave and he's like very crafty and he, you know, all this sort of stuff. A legend being told about this guy, basically. There's lots of fear about the Isgolfin coming, for whatever purpose. People know that Uthal, Kolbrander, and Jarl Yngvar, or Karl Yngvar, were like enemies and had been enemies for a very long time. And people are like worried about that. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's probably it, what you would get from that.
And I think in the meantime, as far as Phelan would mostly just be trying to kind of help do his part as the warrior in town to help kind of keep peace as best as he could, kind of going around giving assurances and breaking up unnecessary trouble. Mostly just trying to make sure that everything stays in line as best as he can. Just trying to take up some of the administrative stuff with the Karl being gone.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that you guys have to deal with, or that Visla particularly has to deal with, is like the wealth of the Karl. It doesn't like actually go to anyone. Didn't like write a will. And while it's not a lot, it's still significant. And it's unclear as to who that goes to. So the guesswork, I guess, would be like whoever is the next Karl inherits it. But it's really not clear. But I guess a couple of days would go by before the replies start coming in. And all of the Karls in this Jarldom are coming, which is Karl Wiglaf, Karl Bjorn, and Karl Stribbjorn. Those three will be coming. And they express sympathies. The Jarl is going to come as well, Jarl Gudmundsson, who's the Jarl of this region. And then there's a Karl from across the mountain range from Jarl Magnusson's land, Jarl Sven. He's going to come as well, as literally the other side of the mountain range that you're on. That's where that Karldom is. And those are the responses that you get. That's a lot of people. The Jarl will probably bring 20 plus people with him, warriors who will need to eat, and each of them will, you would imagine, bring at least 5 people, if not more, all of which will need to eat. Plus all of the people who live in your village will need to eat, plus all of the people who are coming from the other villages to pay respects to the Karl will have to eat. So something to think about.
You might see the scene of Visla with the responses as the writers come back in, and any of them that might have written responses, or just the word that yes, they're coming, yes, they're coming, yes, they're coming. And the mental calculations, looking around the storerooms, looking at what grain, what meat they have stored up, and thinking that it might not be enough, and being very concerned.
So in the meantime, Arnvid is kind of taken over a lot of the Karl's duties, and like hearing the concern about food. He would say we can send more hunters. We can send lots of people hunting. Maybe that's something, or fishing or something. That's what we can do. But we're not going to have enough mead. We're not going to have enough bread. We're not going to have enough grain.
Send more hunters. Send word to the fishing village up in the north. Idalega. Send word to them to bring what they have.
To bring what they have, and he's got this like expression on his face, like, we could ask them, but it's, since we're offering them hospitality, we're supposed to also feed them and keep them comfortable for the duration of their stay.
And can they not bring an offering for the Karl?
Surely offerings will be brought, but it's likely to be metals, silver, things of that nature, fine gifts, and things to put in the boat with him.
We cannot have enough to drink with so many men. Certainly not with a feast.
Water down the mead?
Aye, half of it. And when they've drunk enough, they won't notice.
All right. He goes to it. So the town is kind of busy. People are like trying to make it work, and you've got hunters working overtime. And word goes out to Bjorn's home and to the other villages to bring gifts, obviously for the Karl, as is normal. Although maybe it's phrased a little bit more intensely. It's not really a suggestion; it's a command. Isvald, what are you bringing from Bjorn's home?
Wolf pelts.
Yes, that'll keep us fed. Are you who's? Oh, okay, so you've probably got about 20 people up there with you in Bjorn's home. All of them warriors at the moment, who are just kind of working on securing the place and shoring up the gaps in the old castle and like trying to make that habitable until you can get enough safety there so you can start bringing people in. Are you going to bring anyone with you?
Maybe like one attendant.
Okay.
Leave like my trusted man of those 20 to rule in Bjornholm when the needful hour comes to go south. But otherwise, I'd just stay up there. I think we'd use like rocks to make those like weird little fishing traps along the coast, and be hunting wolves in the forest while we forage and building up the ruins there.
Yeah.
By the sea.
So then it would be maybe the first to arrive, I imagine, of all of the various people. If it's the closest place, would be Isvald and his companion. Perhaps not so grand an arrival as what you're expecting from like the Jarl, for example, on horseback towards the gates. And there would be like this sort of ceremonial situation where like the gate guard would like call and say, the Elderman of Bjorndom has arrived to pay respects, and would like wait for whoever of you is around to like greet them.
Welcome, Isvald.
Greetings, Visla. It's good to be back. You take a look about the place and see the increased activity and the hubbub and sense the palpable energy and anticipation. It is good that so many will come. It will be hard to feed them. We brought what we can. He'll gesture to his attendant hauling the racks of smoked fish and unpacking saddlebags.
You see the smile kind of quirk at the corner of her mouth. You have always been the practical one among us. Your
This is
gifts
not
are most
practical,
welcome.
he says, with like a dry smirk mirrored. Men will starve through the coming winter from the gifts we've brought here. But Yngvar was worth it. An old man, true to his word, wise, staunch rival against Uthal. No matter how hard it got, he never made peace. A man worth honouring while he burns.
Come and sit by the fire. You are welcome here.
Glad for it, and he'll peel off some gloves and make his way towards the others huddled around the closest brazier.
So over the next day or so, the other eldermen would arrive from the various villages in your Carldom. The enormous, jolly, fat man from Yarnvik would arrive with 10 people in tow and a wagon. They've brought a great amount of mead and they've brought a great amount of metal gifts. There's all this hubbub and excitement about this sword that was crafted for the Karl that he can bring with him to the Allfather. And maybe the pragmatist in all of you rolls your eyes at the idea of that sword just being made and then thrown into the sea. But it's a princely gift nonetheless. And he would chat at you excitedly about how, oh yes, and it's been forged quite specifically to the Karl's needs. Now, unfortunately, the Karl won't be using it, of course, but in the final battle to come, he will. It'll stand up there with some of the greatest swords.
When this man re-enters Vagnar's proximity, wherever he is, there is still the astonishment of a man that size existing on this world. And he looks on in disgust. He maybe even shares a look with Phelim across the street or something.
Yeah, he's riding on the top of a wagon. And he would see, I guess, the two of you, and he would hey, it's you guys. It's good to see you again. And how was your trip to Adelaide? I hope it went well. And I was waffling at you basically nonstop. And he would once he's all packed away, he would come and find you and share a drink with you and just incessantly talk at you.
And Phelim again would kind of just respond with that the courteous half responses of a person barely listening. It's just yes, it's very great. What a wonderful gift. Oh yeah, our trip was fine. Just basically not really saying anything, but saying things.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is Vagnar remembers to maintain the mental note he's already taken about this man. He is the one who controls iron in this area. Was it iron or was it steel?
Iron, yeah.
Iron, yeah. So he's obviously going to be an important ally. So at least we're friends with him. So Ragnar doesn't show him any kind of disrespect or anything, but he just keeps his eyes sort of away to hopefully stop the incessant conversation. He doesn't get his wish.
Another day or two would go by of preparations and stuff, and now the tents are starting to go up. So the long hall it's large. It's not enormous, not big enough for all the people who are coming, and so they're putting up canvas between some of the buildings to keep it sheltered from the elements, or the worst of them anyway, and putting braziers in there, laying out big long benches and tables and stuff so that everyone has a place to sit. Not everyone can sit in the long hall. And as that's coming to a close, the first of the Karls would arrive. excuse me, that would be Karl Bjorn Ranulfsson. He makes a big deal about his arrival and expects to be met by someone important. And so when like one of the nearby warriors is just like, "Oh, you're most welcome," he like puts up a hand and he's like, "Who is in charge here? I'll speak with them." And so basically the call goes out and eventually it's brought to you guys.
Visla would hear that, and knowing something of Karl Bjorn's self-importance, would sigh to herself before moving that direction with some amount of haste. He's not a man to be kept waiting.
You're in charge here?
I am the Sather of... or I was the Sather for Karl Yngvar. I am overseeing the funerary proceedings. Arnvid, his champion, is also around.
So you can see this man, he's like on the back of a horse. He's got this like blue sort of tunic with like gold trim. He's got a golden ring on one of his fingers, a long black beard and long black hair. And next to him is his son, who looks almost identical, a little bit sort of bigger and a little bit more muscled, I guess. The Karl himself is not old, but his son is up there with him in terms of size. They look very, very similar. They both look fairly wealthy. You know about Karl Bjorn that he has been like the ascendant Karl sort of in recent times. The most recent like conflict in this part of the world was those islands between Karl Yngvar's lands and Karl Bjorn's, and they belonged to Karl Bjorn. Well, they didn't always. Yeah, so he would kind of like spit on the ground and just like nod. We come to see guest rights, and we come to pay our respects to Karl Yngvar the Old.
You are most welcome here. Enter.
Good. And he would just like nod and then kick his horse, and they would begin filing through. There's maybe 10 of them in total. They have like a wagon as well with gifts, obviously, of some kind. And this is repeated several times. Not with this Karl, but with all the other Karls. It's a very similar sort of situation. Now, not all of them are as standoffish, but you end up with Karl Wiglaf, who's perhaps in his 50s. He's probably the least grand of the ones that you meet. He has the least stuff with him, least people with him. There's Karl Stribbjorn, who you would know is the safest of the Karls. So he's furthest south. The land's a little bit richer. And so he has a bit more wealth with him. And he's like a short, brown-haired man, thick beard, has a golden torque, 2 silver bracelets. Seems to be of the wealthier. And it's kind of like this goes on several days, and then another 2 days pass with all these people in the village until finally the Jarl arrives. You imagine he's done that on purpose so that he can be the one to arrive last. He arrives with a train of 30 men with him. All of them in chain, all of them with shields, axes, and they move in a sort of column. And he's at the top of it, atop this beautiful horse, really just outstanding, white, perfect stallion. He has this like long sort of red, thick coat on with golden trim, and he's just bedecked in finery. He's maybe in his 40s. He looks pretty spry for a man his age as well. And you know about that this Jarl is pretty well liked and pretty respectable in most ways. And he waits to be greeted as well. He doesn't spit when Havisla greets him, he's the first one of them who hasn't done that. But he's brought in and he's expecting, to stay in the Karl's old quarters. He's expecting quarters for all of his people, which is outrageous. He brought 30. He's expecting, immediate food and like a place to wash and all that sort of stuff, making all these ridiculous demands that you really can't fulfill. And he says, "Did the Karl live in squalor?"
I imagine Visla is standing there inside, and she's listened to his list of demands, and the forced half smile on her face is just pasted there. No, Jarl, certainly not. However, he was not so
So the squalor
fortunate
has happened since he has died.
in his aged years as to be as wealthy as you, my Jarl.
And what's that stench?
Visla gestures to the corner table where the body is laid. She goes, "The Karl has been dead some days, and in spite of our best efforts, the body does begin to smell."
I see. Am I the last to arrive?
Yes, my Jarl.
Good. Then we should burn him sooner than later, no?
Of course. We will begin the stories tonight.
Good. And where will my men be quartered?
Your men will be with most of the rest of the men from the other Karls.
Inside, I hope, not in a tent.
As many as we can fit inside. However, the majority will be expected to be in the tents. Our hall is not so large, and it would be unseemly to require one of the Karls to weather outside.
I see. Very good. And he just like turns and walks towards one of his Huskarls. This Huskarl is like very big. He's quite famous. He's a Gunlander. Ekkel Wildeye is his name, and he's like a swordsman. He's like well known, and he's why the Jarl doesn't really get fucked with, because a lot of Jarls do this where they like hire an excellent warrior, and then they just like, if it's a problem, they challenge the home gang, and then the warrior kills them, and they're proven correct in the eyes of the gods. It's sort of like a cheat code where you just like hire the roughest fuck that you can find, and then act holy about it. And Ekkel Wildeye is called that because he has like one incredibly lazy eye, and no one has ever mentioned it to him. And he stands next to the Jarl, and he's like muttering and just like shaking his head, like looking around the place with this sort of look of disgust at the squalor that these people live in. And so they're stationed in various places. There's complaints immediately from the Jarl's men. They're not used to staying in a tent. And they're saying if, they're warriors, but they're the Jarl's warriors. So if there are Karl warriors sleeping inside, then they should be put outside, and we should be put inside. And this is like the debate that's going on. And it goes on for quite some time until finally Ekil Wildeye comes up to you, Phelim. You're in charge here, nominally, yeah?
In charge enough. Why?
Okay, listen. The warriors that the Jarl has brought, they are superior. They are more important than the warriors the Karls have brought. They cannot be seen to be sleeping outside when the Karls' men are seen to be sleeping inside. It's not correct, not the correct form, and we cannot stand for it. So, see to it, yes?
Of course, the space must go to the Karls first, after the Jarl, then to the Jarl's men after.
You have it exactly. Excellent.
Vagnar mutters to Phelim, sort of, as he's standing by your side, and he says, "It's more likely the Jarl's men will be sleeping on the drinking hall floor. Seems like a waste."
It's not the time to make enemies with strong people.
And Vagnar says "aye" and rubs his knee.
Yeah, so basically Phelim's logic is it's better to be on good terms with the Jarl than it is with the Karls. So he would do as has been suggested as best as he is able to manage. Make sure that obviously the Jarl has the best room, and then the Karls, but then the Jarl's warriors after that would have place inside before the Karl's warriors, and so on down the list, as best as he's able to convince people to manage into.
So there are immediate counter complaints when that happens. Karl Bjorn would come up to you and he would say, "This is an outrage. We were here first. We have claimed these places. We are here first. We have been given guest rights just like everyone else, and they were to be moved. My men are to be moved out into the cold, into the tent."
If you were Jarl, you would demand the same thing.
I was here first.
Yes, and you will be made sure to have a room. Jarl's men must be provided for just as your men.
Uh-huh. You're the foreigner, aren't you?
Kind of just like looks himself up and down, like it's pretty obvious.
Uh-huh. And he just like nods and then
problem?
it's just evident. And then he like turns.
Evident he's a cunt, he whispers.
Yeah, Phelim tries his best not to to crack a smile and make it obvious. But fails nonetheless and musters a chuckle. Swear, I think I'd take the Escalfin over these lot.
They sleep where they fall. You wouldn't have this bother.
Bother it is for sure. Let's get this over with. Get these lot out of here as quick as we can.
I'm sure if they're informed their objections can be made to the Jarl personally, they may move quicker.
Fair point. And Phelim would actually probably take that, and if anybody confronted him further, he would just tell them that.
Yeah, the complaints begin very high-handed, but kind of relatively quickly die down. No one wants to tell the Jarl to move. So people are getting situated. It's pretty packed in town now. It's overflowing with people. And there's sort of the people who live here have like set up stalls and stuff near the tent so that they can sell bits and pieces to the various warriors who don't want to wait till whatever time to eat. And so people are like squirrels and rats and stuff like that, selling those roasted. And of course, whatever like personal supplies of mead, the stuff they have, they sort of sell those too. A sort of market, I guess, builds up on the outskirts of the tent. And I say tent, but really it's more like if you've ever been to like Oktoberfest, like a huge tent, it's like canvas between the various roofs and stuff. You've basically got this like covered up walkway that's fairly large, covers up most of the courtyard in front of the longhouse. It's not too long before fights start or break out in various places. They don't get very, very serious, but there are like a few scraps here and there. People who don't get on very well. No one dies. No one gets even wounded, but there's a couple of like dust-ups here and there that happen. And what are you guys doing now?
I'd be making sure the attendant I brought had a cup of mead as well, and enjoying that, and just walking around the periphery of like the main festivities, avoiding anyone of note and just watching and listening.
I think Wagner might spot Isvald at some point during the proceedings, and he doesn't say anything to him. I think he maybe spots him from the other side of a fire, and all he does is this, signifying the 2 fingers he still owes him.
Isvald would nod. I trust you're enjoying yourself, Wagner.
These are trying times, it seems, for these people. Not much food, not much drink, and lots of tension.
And this is where you'd choose to spend the third night of your freedom?
Better there than the pissing yards. Or the rest of the fine servants here.
Yes, they come to honor the Karl. He gives the smallest smirk. So that Wagner could notice, but not anyone else. And he'd be mumbling it over his mustache into his drink as he says it, so that it's just for Wagner's ears.
And Wagner returns the smirk, and he says, "If you require service while you're here, I'll be at your side."
You can hear this table nearby kind of talking fairly boisterously. One of them says, why the fuck would you want to be part of this place anyway? I mean, this is the fucking state of the place. And one of the other ones says, you're still a Karl though, aren't you? You know, you get to boss people around and, you know, better than this. And there's just this conversation about why would you want to be Karl of this place that kind of spreads around. And then one of the guys says, I reckon it'll be Bjorn's son that takes it, to be honest. These people need a leader. Doesn't look like they have one.
If this is within hearing of Isvald while he's near Wagner, then he'd murmur before he goes to take another drink, so within Wagner's hearing. They're right, you know. We'd want to captain a sinking ship.
Aye, maybe they are. Drinking piss water mead too.
Sweeter than rainwater, friend.
That can't be argued.
We should get some crackling before Lord Pig does, he says, and moves towards where the fat man, and he'll endure a tirade of his bullshit to get some meat and keep some wrapped to give to his attendant later on.
Yeah, Wagner, well practiced, bracing the tidal wave that is this man's conversation skills, sort of nods and goes to join you to get some of that before it's all gone.
What you were Isvald, no?
Aye, that's my name.
Isvald. That's what I thought. From Bjorn's home. No, you've recently reclaimed it, I heard. Well done. Congratulations.
Aye, thank you.
We're wanting to set up trade routes very quickly between Jarnvik and yours. No?
No doubt in the future.
Of course, perfect. Sounds excellent. You can speak to one of my men about it.
I'll be sure to seek
What
one
is
of the
there in
men.
Bjorn's home? What do you trade mostly?
Very little, but wolf pelts, and he'll pull one from his shoulders. There's a wolf head on either side, kind of like a pauldron, holding up a patchwork. He'll show him such, and even better at the coldest part of the year, but still impressive beasts.
Very fine.
That
very
fishing.
Fine. I suppose you want to make a gift of that to me, no?
Have I missed your birthday? He'll laugh as if the man's joking at him.
Well, if we're going to be friends give each other gifts. No, I'll give you something. Let me see. He like rummages in this bag next to him. Oh, fuck. Hang on. And he's like clicking his fingers at one of his boys or whatever who are standing around. Get the... No, not the sword. No, get the... Oh, fuck it. Well, we'll talk later.
Well, if we are to be friends, he'll put his palms up to the man and say, keep the cloak. I may keep you warm. And then he'll like nod, and before the man can thank him, hopefully he'll turn and like move away to eat.
Yep.
Wasted
out of
gift.
range, out of like sonic range of that guy.
Wasted gift, Isvald. It'll barely cover him.
Worth it, and he'll crunch on some of the crackling. Besides, we have many more wolves up north.
Aye, that you do.
So, Havisla, there's two options when it comes to burning this, Karl. You can make a pyre and do it here, or you could like move everyone to the coast and do it there. So it's more traditional, obviously, to like send an actual boat out, but like also you're not at the coast and you have to move all these people. So it's also possible that you could like make a pyre here and burn him that way.
It's a couple days to the coast, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be frowned upon to do a pyre?
No, not.
Okay.
No.
Then she would probably do that just for the sheer logistics of it. Yeah, I don't think I can make a DC 55, Miko.
So you can start to pile up this pyre, like getting all these bits of wood and stuff, and like it's actually quite a careful construction. It's not like you just pile a bunch of shit together, you know. Pile it really, really high, maybe 20 or so feet up, and there's like a stairway and everything that leads up to it, so that you can give respects and stuff, and that people can, when they're up there, say something about the Karl to the assembled people. So that's kind of being built with the idea that it'll be finished for dawn, at which time, you know, there'll be like a proper send off.
All right, and she'll have either there or in the hall, there's going to be this bowl, and it's got meat in it, and mother's milk in it, and mistletoe, and a symbol of tear that's been melted down, that's mixed in. And when she's she'll speak to the Karls and to Phelim and Isvald and anyone who is likely to go up and speak. And she'd tell them, if you wish to partake, if you wish to send off the Karl, dip your fingers in this. Taste it, and you'll be bound by it. There will be no violence here. There will be no bloodshed. I will not see the Karl dishonored, nor his funeral disrupted for such.
So the Jarl like doesn't question it; he just does it. But Bjorn like looks at it, and looks at you, looks at the Jarl, looks at you, looks at the bull. I don't need some sorcery to keep my oath in check.
Then perhaps you have traveled far for no reason, if you do not wish to join in. The Karl trusted me. He understood my gifts and the powers that the gods have granted me. You need not abide by them, but you may not participate unless you do.
You know, they say that Karl lived so long because he had a witch at his side. That you kept him young, gave him a natural long life. That's what they whisper all over this Carldom. I don't want to be infected with whatever sorcery, whatever witchcraft you have here. I don't think I'm alone in that.
Not quite so fearful as you. And Phelan will step up and partake in this. Just kind of standing up straight next to this man, just taking part of it, and just kind of like giving him a look. If the Karl lived a long and good life as a result, then I'd be happy to take part. Nor am I scared of sorcery. I'm not so fearful as that. It's kind of like trying to subtly challenge him.
Arnvid, without too much pomp or whatever, he just goes up and like takes it and tastes it. As does Karl Wiglaf, he doesn't make a big deal of it. But Bjorn is like pretty unhappy about the situation, but he sees that if he wants to talk, he's going to have to do it. It strikes me that this would be a very good way to remove all of the Karls and the Jarl in one blow. It strikes me that if you were a witch, you could remove us all with whatever this spell is. What if you're an agent from the Iskolfin? We would all be dead, and we would be leaderless in one stroke. But it's too late to do anything about it now. I suppose they've all drank already.
If you fear that you are so weak that a simple taste would kill you, you need not.
Do not speak to me like this, witch.
And do not doubt my loyalty, Karl.
I'll not speak. My oath is proof enough to me, and to my men, and to the gods. And if you doubt my oath, and you insist that I get involved in whatever this ritual is, then I'll not speak. I have nice things to say about the Karl. He was a friend of mine, almost like a father to me in some ways. But I'll not speak if I have to go through this.
Phelan doesn't say anything, but he smirks at that. In his mind, this probably doesn't reflect very good on Bjorn and his chances. If he doesn't take part in like the ritual and doesn't give any speech, then he looks bad, I would imagine, for declining. So he just kind of lets him decline.
I am certain your words will be missed, Karl.
What's your name?
Wisla.
I'll remember it.
Wisla bites back a really snarky comment and just kind of nods.
This is like real uncomfortable tension with the other Karls and the Jarl who are standing here, like watching this exchange. And the Jarl says, I don't think it's necessary to refuse Karl Bjorn the chance to speak at the funeral. Seems heavy-handed. Then again, it's just mead, Bjorn. I've just tasted it. It's mead. But Bjorn is like having none of it. He's like looking steely-eyed.
There's no weapons allowed in all this, I presume. Or are they armed?
I mean, the Karls and stuff would be armed, sure, and the Jarl. There's no weapons in like the festival area, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be like stuff set up and people would like give over their stuff so that just in case somebody gets angry and they draw a blade, this way they get angry and they throw a punch instead. So yeah, most people are unarmed, but obviously like the Karls and stuff are allowed to be armed. in such a sort of tightly packed place for their own safety.
Wisla will look at the Jarl and look over at Bjorn. Karl, if you do wish to speak, I will grant you that. However, I would ask that your men, at least, partake.
I would not ask my men to go through any hardship that I do not go through myself. What kind of leader would I be if I asked them to drink of this witch poison and not do it myself? You wouldn't understand, clearly. I could say my piece about the Jarl at the feast afterwards, about the Karl afterwards. I could say it at another time. But I'm not engaged in this witchcraft. Too many have died to your kind. Too many have been twisted. I'll have no part in it.
Of course, it is your right to refuse.
So that breaks up eventually. Karl Bjorn goes back to his men. And the Karls go, and the Jarls go back to their own, and there's some discussion and stuff, and the night goes, and there's drinking, although nothing too heavy. They've been forbidden from getting drunk this evening, as the festival is in the morning, the funeral is in the morning, first thing. Thereafter, they can get as wrecked as they want to. So there's kind of like some somber discussions and stuff, and some talks about, reminiscing about the Karl and what people know about him, which is not much. They know he's old. Almost everyone knows that he's the oldest man that's ever lived, or so they think. And then some people will tell stories about when he was young, old men among them. But mostly it's pretty peaceful during the festivities. And the sun kind of like just barely starts to come up. It's got that sort of pre-dawn gray gloom. And people start to pile around this enormous pyre. Positions of privilege are given to the Karls and the Jarl and to you guys, so you can stand near the front and see what's happening, while others have climbed onto the roofs of buildings or onto the second story of buildings and stuff like that to get a good view of what's going on. And the pyre has been built pretty high, like I say, and there's a stairs leading up to the top. Who do you want to go first, Wisla? It's kind of up to you.
She would let Arnvid the champion go.
Okay.
Unless it would be more appropriate to let the Jarl go first. I'm not sure what would fit better.
Don't think there's really a set order. It doesn't really matter. Everyone's going to get to say their piece except for poor Bjorn.
Stubborn bastard.
So there's all this hubbub, and people are talking, and then eventually Arnvid makes his way up the creaky ass steps to the top of this pyre, not very stable structure, and he would just call out for quiet, and it would fall. And so I have known Karl Yngvar my entire life. And I was born here in Ingvik, and Ingvik has been a constant as a stone. And he has steered this Karldom from disaster, keeping us safe against the incursions of the Iskolfin again and again. And he weathered hardships that no man should, the death of his wife, the deaths of his children, to see his Karldom brought low by constant raids. Yet Yngvar, he stood firm to his very last day. And he'll be seated at the right hand of the Allfather, of this I am certain. To Yngvar. and there's like a rushes around the place, and like a sort of, I guess, a golf clap that goes around, and he like makes his way down. And who's next? So you're kind of orchestrating this whole thing, Havisa, so it's kind of up to you to say who's going when.
So she'd look at probably Phelim.
Yeah, and Phelan would just give a nod back. Likewise, make his way up the rickety, creaking steps of the pyre until he was at a position which would be reasonable. Then once he managed to get the crowd back to a state of quiet,
Men at the gates. This is like messenger like runs in, or messenger like a guard basically runs in, and he runs up to like Arnvid and Havisa. Uthal is here. Only 10 with him. He says he's come to pay respect. And we'll take a quick break there.
Oh, jeez.
Right, I'm gonna go for a smoke. I'll be back in like 5 minutes. I'm back.
So, did someone show up who I think just showed up?
Jarl Coldbrander.
Fuck. Oh shit, son. I'm gutted. I just sat back down and you were like 5 minute break. And I was like, what just happened? I wonder if he'll remember me.
Be hard not to with that brand on your forehead.
Yeah. Well, at least by showing up, he's put to shit that he's 10 feet tall, or is he 10 feet tall?
Yeah. This is when Lloyd drops that he's actually like somehow become a Jotunnet since we saw him in that other one shot, and he's just some witchcraft has made him actually 10 feet tall.
Or stilts.
Yeah, stilt in a long coat.
Yeah. With cleft hooves on the bottom. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be fun. We could totally.
It's gonna be something.
We could.
Are we all back?
Him.
I was gonna say that's what me and Nico were saying in the chat.
Yeah, I think we got to try and
Like
kill
it's
him.
not unreasonable.
So the messenger comes and he says that Uthel's here with 10 others at the gate with a branch, seeking entry to pay respects to the Karl.
Lloyd, can I roll and find out what the protocol is for something like this?
Sure, make it traditions. What exactly are you trying to find out?
Is it better to grant him guest rights, or knowing that there are people who want to just kill him outright? Guessing that, at least. Would it be better to just let them?
He's under a peace branch, so you shouldn't kill him.
Okay.
You can refuse him entry if you like. It's also like not uncommon for enemies to pay respects to their enemies when they die. Especially like an enemy like Yngvar, and who has been Uthel's enemy for like 30 years. It's a big deal for Uthel as well, which is why he's here.
It's a 25 for tradition.
Yeah, so there's no clear answer. It's strategically probably better to just kill him, but then again, he's got a peace branch, which means that the gods might curse you for that, all of you. You've also just gone through this ritual to ensure that the Karls don't start any violence. Apart from Karl Bjorn, the rest of whom will be like cursed by your magic if they begin violence. So it's
and one more question. Did Yngvar have any respect for Uthel in their rivalry?
Fear, hate, probably. I mean, respect, sure, in that he like was so successful for so many years against Ingvar, you know. But like a grudging, sort of hateful respect, like, oh, he's good at what he does. I don't like him though, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Wisla, hearing this, will look at the messenger. A peace branch, you sure?
That over he's carrying a stick with him for some reason, I'm sure. The men with him, oh, they're frightening.
What does the Jarl say? I figure most would be looking to him.
You can see that he's similarly conflicted in that this is like a great opportunity, potentially. But also, like, all the tradition suggests that you shouldn't attack this man now. So he's kind of just like watching and thinking. Inconclusive.
Wagner steps forward and he says, "If it please you, I know him. If you believe that he only brought 10 men with him, you would be mistaken, I'm sure of it. There may very well be more."
How did message get to him? Wiglaf asks.
Spies, no doubt.
He knows there's no helping that now. Better let him come in.
Most of the villages are undefended.
Wagner looks to Wisla. And again he repeats, "I know him."
I will not refuse the peace offering. But Wagner, could you perhaps find out if there are other tracks, evidence of other men? Take with you whomever you will.
He looks at you and he doesn't say anything, but he nods. But the thoughts that run through Wagner's mind are somewhat like this. He's interacted with your kind before. And he was privy to visions and dreams that foretold of the old Karl's demise. And he didn't like that. But regardless, he nods and he turns. Lloyd, who would likely be near that would have overheard, so I can take them with me? Like, I obviously have no authority to say, you guys come with me, you know what I mean?
Sure. It's good old Gorm and Quarrel, I guess.
Yes, it is. Yes, it fucking is, right. I give them both a nod, and I'd like to think they fall into step with me.
Yeah, they look at each other first, like, look at you like, Uthal?
Come on, boys.
Fuck.
It's time to earn the food in your belly. Come on. And is there another way out of the settlement, Lloyd?
Sure. Yep. I mean, he's at the like main gates or whatever, but there are other gates.
Yeah, we're gonna go out the other gate and we're gonna start looking. And you can tell me whenever you need me to make checks and things like that, Lloyd. But essentially, following the Seder's suggestion to find any evidence of there being other forces
Sure.
of the Escalfin.
Okay, and in the meantime, what are the rest of you doing? Are you just going to let them stand at the gate?
So Phelim's like up at the top of the pyre, like he had like his hands on the railing, ready to like talk, ready to give his speech, and he's just kind of like now stood like watching this chaos erupt from above, just watching people scrambling around and the messages, and he just kind of like almost takes a second of just like stunned bewilderment, to regain himself, but just eventually with a shrug, will make his way back down the stairs. To the group, and just say, well, we're going to receive him, then I guess we should receive him.
Visla pales slightly, but nods and begins the trek to the main gate.
Yeah, Phelim will go as well.
Crowd is very confused, and like mutters of Uthal have like spread around, and people are like really quite frightened, and they don't know what to do. And you've got like various men of Karl's and Jarl's trying to keep them in line. You make your way down to the main gate, and you can kind of climb up on top, I guess. You know, where there's a little walkway. You can see that there are 10 of them. Uthal in front. Big. He's not 10 feet tall, but he's big. Bigger than most men. Like he exudes an aura of threat, though he doesn't look particularly memorable. He looks like most warriors do. He's got like sort of like long black hair and a long black beard that comes out under his sort of nasal helm. This fine suit of chain with like metal plates almost randomly attached to it. And this big cloak, this like white cloak, fur cloak. He's got this big sword at his side and a shield across his back. He's just like sitting on his horse. He's like looking around, almost bored. Next to him on another horse is a man that you guys would recognize, or you would recognize. Phelim, it's the other guy that was with Gygor, Havarl Redblade, who had been in Adelega a couple of over a week ago now. And there are others, but notably among them, there's one of them is definitely a Saith Kona. There's no question in your mind that this is like a witch of the most ridiculous kind. She has this like red hair that like almost goes out from her head. It seems to like move of its own accord. That couldn't be happening, but that's the impression that you get. So she's quite noticeable, and then also noticeable is the Jotunet that stands with them. It's not a famous one. It's not one that you recognize. It's not Ogvai. But he stands at the back with like an axe across his shoulder, and he's just like looking. He's got these like piercing blue eyes, and he's just like watching the walls. Exuding threat as well. There's a lot of threat coming from this group. They don't, like I say, many of them don't look notable, but you know that they are effective. You get that impression from them.
Do we have clear sight of this supposed peace branch?
Yes. One of the men next to Uthal is like holding this birch branch.
Visla, as she comes up and takes in the sight, her breath catches. Not just that it's Uthal, but the Jotunet. She hasn't seen one like this. Not this close. And when her eyes land on the Saith Kona, she almost shudders. That magic is twisted. It is strong. And it is something that even Visla does not meddle with.
Have you authority to treat with me?
Aye, Jarl. You come in peace, I see.
We do.
And what brings you to Ingvik?
The death of Yngvar.
I don't remember sending a rider.
I have my ways.
Your company may leave their weapons. And you may enter to show your respects. The funeral has only just begun.
And the rest of you, have you left your weapons?
Indeed, only the Jarls and the Karls have theirs. That they might protect themselves, should something arise. And the same hospitality will be shown to you.
So I may keep my weapon.
You alone.
Just like sits in silence on the back of his horse and kind of like turns his head, thinking. Agreed.
Jarl, I must also request that the Jotnet remain outside the gate. The people of Ingvik, they could not tolerate it. Their terror would be unprecedented.
He is not an animal.
He is fearsome.
I am fearsome.
You are human. There's a difference.
He turns to the Jotnet and he says something quietly to him, and the Jotnet says, "Without any issue," and it just like rumbles. And then he nods. Agreed.
Wisla swallows and offers him the same greeting she has to everyone who's come. Enter. You are welcome here.
I've come to pay my respects to Karl Yngvar, which is like the other half of that ritual, and he like very slowly rides his horse into town. The Jotnet stands at the gate, leaning against the gate, and just waits. And as you're like kind of leaving, you can hear him like, you can like feel the power of the breath just as he's breathing. And the rest of Ugvai's party make their Util's party make their way in to where the people are gathered. There are immediate like of the crowd and stuff, and many of them like part, even though there's no room. Like people are finding room so that they can not stand near these people, and they find like a section and get off their horses and just like politely and quietly watch the proceedings.
Wisla makes meaningful eye contact with Phelim.
Yeah, Phelan kind of just returns the gaze for a moment, just kind of trying to take in everything that's happened in such a short amount of time. But then he'll just look over and say, well, guess I was just about to speak. Is it still my turn?
Visla just kind of nods. Please continue.
Yeah, and Phelan gives an uncomfortable smile. He's clearly trying to steel himself against this unexpected arrival of this man. But by the time that he's made it away from Visla and out of the crowd, he's brought himself down into a firm and stone face again, not letting the situation change him in front of everybody. And he'll make his way back up the steps of the pyre. Kind of with I imagine uncomfortable silence, not needing to wave the crowd into any stillest time. Yes, well, as we were saying, we're here to honor great Karl. He brought me in years ago, first as a mercenary, and then as a warrior, member of his village, the place at his table. From that place, I've seen nothing but kindness and generosity from the good Karl. A good man who provided what he could for his people, despite tough circumstances. Always seeking to do more, no matter the odds, always seeking to push further, no matter the opposition. As he says that, he intentionally avoids looking down at Uthal and his crew. He lived a good man, longer than most. He died a good man. Glory from the first breath to the last. You will see that his legacy does not go left rotted to time, but that it springs into something greater. That Ingmar will be a better place than it ever has before in honor of him. To Ingmar.
And the crowd once again respond.
And Phelan just kind of inclines his head, kind of partially as a sign of respect and partially to look down at the crew of Uthal and his men watching before making his way down the pyre and awaiting whatever proceedings follow.
There's like this silence that follows, a little bit of like chatter among the crowd and stuff, but Uther would like look towards you, Hvisla. I want to speak.
Visla nods and gestures.
He walks across over to the pyre, looks up at it, looks at the heavy armor he's wearing, and just stands at the bottom. And he says, "This man was my enemy for as long as I can remember. This old bastard held the line against us, and he did his best to repel us. And I can remember one of my very first raids, seeing him in the shield wall. There's a warrior, I thought. Should have died there, in the shield wall. Not to waste away in a sickbed like some weakling. He deserved better than that. He just looks up at the pyre for a second and then walks back to where he was. It's like no cheer or anything. Just shunk, shunk, shunk of chain.
Visla bristles slightly, but looks around and her eyes land on Isvald. Go.
I'll move aside from where I'm standing so that the gaze falls upon a more outranking Karl or member of the funerary rites nearby to me, and try and like subvert that so that one of them will have to speak, if I may, through like a tradition roll, or like it's not really a sleight of hand, but you know what I mean? Like everyone, all eyes are looking, and then when I move away, they'll see another person like that and be like, oh yes, of course they meant that kind of person.
The Jarl.
Yeah. She sees you step aside and sees the Jarl instead. And kind of locks eyes with him and nods almost demurely.
He steps up and climbs the pyre. He says, when my father first came to power, Yngvar was already in his middle years. He was a constant in our world, a man from another time. He was old when I was young, and I'm not young anymore. A man of honor and a man of duty. He'll be sorely missed, and we shall feel a little less safe in Fjallkorna, knowing that old Yngvar will no longer be there to keep the monsters at bay. He looks at Uthal for a second with that. Here's to Yngvar the Old. We shall not see his like again. And there's a cheer from the crowd.
So waits for the Jarl to descend again. Before just kind of going down the line, looking at Wiglaf, and then skipping over Bjorn. I suppose probably finishing with Isvald as well.
Isvald will walk up to the pyre and grab a torch and hold it aloft. Speak well of Yngvar the Old, of his generosity, of his trueness, and that he endured the pain of seeing his sons and grandsons die old, and that he honored the gods and kept the Lord's pact. And hopefully those noble and brave amongst us will see him again in the halls of Valhalla. And then he'll throw the torch down into the prepared pyre with all the gifts, and watch the flames begin to rise and then move away. And he'll walk to stand near Uthal, and then turn and watch the flames grow higher and hear the sound of it roaring louder. It takes him back to childhood and the flaming ruins, soon to be of Bjornholm, bright against the darkest night he can recall. He's being dragged away by what few men loyal to his father were not slaughtered. As his lady's mother is dragged by soldiers towards a younger Uthal, standing with the same imperious casuality, like he probably is now. And he begins calling out, "Bjornsson! Bjornsson!" But it's not till he casts the woman into the flames that my father runs screaming towards him, balls past the laughing Colbrander and into the flames, futilely to rescue her. And the pyre grows higher and the flames roar louder. And he grabs Colbrander by the coat and tries to twist his fist into it to lock himself to this man.
Now?
Yep.
Okay. Give me an athletics, please.
19. Oh, sorry, athletics is 21. I just did mine to hit.
Give me a sec. Okay, no, he gets a 27. Got a 19 on the dive.
So I get to, for a bonus action, get to do a grapple if I do a improvised attack or a grapple because of my menning. This one will be a 22.
Gets a 19.
I'm going to drag him into the pyre with me. And I'm going to grab hold of the fat man's flaming sword and action surge and drive it into Uthal Colbrander's heart for a crit fail while I'm on fire. The oil that I'd placed into my mead skin bladder that I messaged you about, I guess would go up in flames now too.
Yep. So there's like this moment, and nobody kind of moves. Everyone's just kind of like watching the fire, and then there's just like this sort of scuffle, and like you can hear this like shunk, shunk, and then there's like a woof, little woof of a flame, and then there's screams and chaos all over the place. All of the various warriors like grab their Jarls and Karls and like put them in the back and like form up walls or whatever. And the witch who's with Uthal like lets out this awful scream and begins to like chant. His warriors like don't have blades, but nonetheless they're just like cracking knuckles and they're running forwards. What are the rest of you going to do? We better roll initiative.
Oh, Nico, what are you doing? This is insane.
That's how it's done.
That is how it's done. You're not kidding. This is Iskloft, brutal and unpredictable. Oh boy.
Sorry, it's quite a long list, so I'll be another minute.
This will be like the interlude where sort of music plays. Building up to this point.
Yeah, you're just seeing the scenes of chaos. People screaming and running. I
Yeah.
bet the Jotuns has started running too.
Oh yeah, that's coming through the gate. We don't really have much chance of stopping it from getting through. Not without. It's right next to it already. You know, if it was charging at a wall, we might have a chance, but no. Best thing we can do is kill
Yeah,
Cold
and
Bumper.
the Jotun is still right there next to all the weapons. So it could very easily grab its axe when it runs in.
Oh yeah,
And
but we're
we'll be
close to
trying
ours
to
too.
fist fight a Jotun.
Lloyd, and I don't mind, you can decide for me, but would Ragnar have had the foresight to have taken his weapons when he went out rambling?
I assume so.
I didn't say, so it's up to you, mate.
Yeah. Although you're probably not back at this stage.
No, I'm probably on my way back.
Mm.
Yep. That's great. I show up just to watch the last of them die. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. There's so many people here. I might just do it like various. I'll give you guys
groups.
Yeah. Best thing to do. Okay, yeah, like this. All right, let's do this. Okay, so fucking chaos breaks out immediately, and I say like the Karls and Jarls are like pulled back, and their men kind of stand in front of them. No one's armed, apart from the Karls and Jarls. Everyone has, unarmed, in most cases. Uthel's people, the witch, she like rolls her eyes back in her head, and she's like, and immediately there's a response of, which is the gate being smashed down, and you can hear this like, the other warriors there all rush towards where Uthel is, and they're going to try and pull him away from you, Iswald. So make me an athletics, and I'll have them make with advantage.
I just got a crit. So it's a 26.
Okay, let's see. There's Red Rugga who runs up with another man called Brady the Eater. Okay, they don't beat you. The two of them are like grabbing you and they're trying to pull you off, but like there's some sort of like death grip that you have on as you're like burning horribly. They're trying to get you out of there. The rest of the men like form a circle around him, all of them unarmed, and they just like have their hands up. The witch is like standing in behind, and she like still has her eyes rolled back in her head. Iswald.
I'm going to drag him further into like the nexus of the pyre and grapple him with my other hand.
Okay, they're gonna punch you a lot as you leave.
That will be a 21 that he has to beat to not be grappled a second time.
Okay, so let's see. Uthel for athletics is 24.
Yeah, so I can't grab him again, but I've still got him grappled with the other hand.
Yeah, and then the two of them who are like within range of you are both going to try and punch you. For a 24 and a 25.
That hits. Yeah, that misses just. No, that hits.
So it's one of these for Rugga, which is going to be 6 bludgeoning from him.
Ha ha ha.
And 6 bludgeoning from the biter as well. But
when I attack with improvise, or unarmed, I get to do the bonus to grab. So I'm going to try and grapple him for the second time.
Okay.
This time I'll be on 18.
23 for him.
Athletics. Okay. Then I'm going to interaction with my mead bladder and pour it all over him.
Okay. I feel like it's gone up already. Like last turn, it would have.
Okay, sweet. Then what damage have he and I taken, like to be on fire, covered in oil inside a pyre?
It's a very good question. We'll call it 2d6 for the first round, and then we'll say 2d6 a round as you continue to be here. So you're taking 10 for the first round and 5 for the second. So this round now. Okay. Jarl Goodmund and his men are like looking shocked. They know that there's peace and that there's not supposed to be any fighting, and he doesn't know what the hell to do. He like looks around and he says, "Stop them! Get them out of there!" And like 10 of his men run over there, while the other 20 remain protecting him. All in like the shadow of this like enormous pyre that is burning now pretty dramatically. And bits of wood start to like fall from it and like smash onto the ground, which is going to be a new layer action. I'll put that in on top. They rush in there and they're trying to like get to grips with like Uthel's people, and they're trying to get at Uthel and you, but it's almost impossible with like the pyre in the way and Uthel's people in the way. So there's some fistfights breaking out there. Phelim.
All right. So this is the first thing that came to mind. With the pyre on fire, with how it's structured, would there be any way to try to bring it down? Like with proper force, the right amount of people. I want to basically bring the pyre down on top of Uthel and
yeah, possibly if you had enough people, you'd have to be on one side and all push. It'd be a job for quite a few people, though.
Would it be within reason for me to know how many people? Because I'm considering using my my pick a target to have 4 people join me.
Probably more than 4. Probably think about 10, if not more. You'd need, because it's pretty hefty and like it's strong enough that you can walk up it, and there's a staircase kind of built on it and stuff. You know, it's like almost like a house, but it's not, and it's also on fire. So if you like, you think if you like were to smash out some of the supporting beams, maybe it would work, but it's tricky.
All right. And I think with that, Phelim's gonna try to push his way. So the witch like in the crowd of their men, of Uthel's men, or is she like elsewhere?
Yeah, she is. She's in with them.
All right. Well, just in case, Phelim will begin. It's like half singing, like half screaming, like it rings out, like even above the fire and above the chaos, you can still hear it. This battle song. I'm gonna start singing my battle hymn. So as a taunt, I have a battle hymn. So basically, people close to me have advantage against being frightened, as long as I'm singing.
Okay.
So I'm going to start that as a bonus action. And then I'm going to ready my action to basically call out a called shot to attack once more of our men get close enough.
Okay, no problem. Wagner, you are running. You are running and running. I don't even know if you would be aware that there is a fight in the town.
This is it. Yeah, I mean, it's
you're quite far away.
So we're out there. Gorm, Kval are hanging out with Wagner. We've ascertained that there are no immediate threats. So I did say I was heading back. So is there anything I can roll to see you or hear?
See, like, there's supposed to be a fire, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not like you'd look at the fire and be like, "Oh no!" You'd be like, "That's the fire we set on purpose."
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to like.
So it's tricky.
It's up to you, mate. Honestly.
Yeah, I think the one was
You'd
you're.
be able to hear the roar of screams.
I don't even know.
I don't
The
know if
one
you're
was
supposed
you
to
were
have.
a mile away. You could have been 4, but you were 1 mile away.
Oh fuck!
That's what I figure. Like the effective range is of like you guys. Like you would have climbed to the top of the hill somewhere to see if you could see anything.
Yeah.
Like if you're scouting, honestly, to like look for people, you would have to go. That sort of
Definitely.
distance. So I think that you can see that there's a fire, and you're like, "That's appropriate. Let's head back."
Fuck.
Like unless like maybe Havisa can get a message to you somehow, or other than that, it's going to be tricky. Havisla.
So my question firstly is, how much does magic depend on being able to see or hear the target?
It depends on the spell, I guess.
Could I make a Saithwise check to see if whatever this Saithcone is doing depends on her ability?
Sure. Yep. Definitely.
For Saithwise, that's 14.
Okay. You don't think so? You think that is a communicative spell? You don't think it requires her to see who she's talking to?
Okay. Can I see the Jotnet?
You can hear him. Can't see him.
I'm going to hold my action until he comes into view.
Okay. Karl Wiglaf and his men are standing where they're standing. That is what they're doing. They're protecting Karl Wiglaf. They're not getting involved in whatever this madness is, the attacking of a man under a peace branch. They'll have no part of it. Karl Bjorn is in a similar situation. They're like looking and they don't know what they can do. Like running more men up there is not going to help the situation. It's already like very, very crowded. So we go back to the top. Uthel's very on fire. He'll take 2d6 fire damage. Which is here. 7. And there's like this stench of like burning fur and hair and all sorts of nastiness. And he is going to try and break free from where you have him grappled. Yeah. It's a 23 that he has as well.
Yeah, that does it.
Okay, so he like finally managed to like get your hand off him and like falls back a little bit, trying to get out of like the oppressive smoke and fire and like pushing his way out.
I'm going to use my opportunity attack to grapple him. And that will be a 25.
Oh my goodness. You're such a grapple monster. He gets a 24, so you have him again.
Yeah, just as he's reeling away, I like reach up this like burning hand and like grasp hold of him, pull him back.
Right. He's going to action surge then to try and... he has a sword to try and stab you. So he's going to... you have him like grab whatever, he pulls the sword out enough to like try and smash the pommel into your face and make some space. So he's going to roll... for a 29 to hit. That's actually a crit. Okay.
It's... Oh, shit.
Oh, my lord. Right. It's 2d8s. It's going to be 14. Oh, but he's using the pommel, so I'm actually going to say it's d6s instead of d8s. Still 14 damage. And then... Oh boy, it's gonna be gross. So I need a D12 and a D. Oh, I'll roll that. Wasn't prepared for combat. I thought it was going to just go by with a nice chat. So I don't have any
So
of
did
my.
I, until this guy rolled.
That was my plan.
I don't have all of my usual brutal combat stuff open. Okay, so I need a D12. Oh, I did say the face though, didn't I?
Yeah, I got a 7 on the D12.
7 is the left arm. Okay, and then roll me a D10.
a 9.
Oh, that's bad. Okay. So it's probably bludgeoning as opposed to slashing. We don't have done. All right, we'll go with piercing. That seems to make the most sense. So he takes the pommel of a sword and he just like smashes it into your cheek, like crushes the cheekbone and into the sinus and like rips into the bony orbit around your eye, destroying the eye, causing the risk of infection.
Damn.
Yeah, so he basically like crunches your cheekbone and where your eye is, and there's like this sort of gross squelch of like now melting eye goo in the fire as he like pulls the sword back for a second attack, which he's going to try and slash you with. Dice. Okay, that's only a 12 to hit, which I think probably misses you.
Yeah, that misses.
So he can't get the appropriate range. He's trying, and he action surge to do that, and he can't move away from you, so he's still in the fire. Okay, that's him. It smashes into the area. You can see like a Sauron style. I was like 10 people just go flying up into the air.
Question, Lloyd.
Yes.
Does he count as humanoid?
Humanoid, yeah. I think he's a giant.
As soon as I can see him, I cast Hold Person.
Okay, so he makes a save, right?
He gets a wisdom save.
So he gets a 7. He's going to use legendary resistance to not.
No.
So he can like feel the magic, and he like locks eyes across and looks at you, and like shakes his head. He like looks towards the Jarl and just like begins moving there. There are like people in his way, and he's just like moving them out of the way, moving towards where the witch is, above all, not you, the other witch. The witch herself is going to... I need you to make a wisdom save, please, Nico.
$15.
Okay. Oh, it's even worse. So
Can she see me inside a pyre?
Yeah, well, she's like standing... That's a good question. I assume so, because like you've walked in there, right? With Uthal.
Yeah, I guess you'd see my silhouette. Yeah.
So you're blinded in the other eye, is the effect of that spell. So like
brutal.
There's just like this splat, and like the eye goes, and you're like, oh fuck, and then you just hear like, and then the other eye is dark, and you see nothing. You can just feel flame and hear and like crackling, and the ragged breathing of Uthal. The rest of his warriors are just like standing in place and they're waiting, and they're just like, they've got their hands up, and like one of them, this biter, is like grabbing a person, like biting into their throat, and like pushing them away, trying to keep you're all safe. That's Uthalin's men. Where's the... Oh, somebody put it in here. Isvald.
I'm going to try and grapple him again.
Yeah.
Except this time with my teeth. For a crit fail, when I try that, I get to bonus for a grapple. Which, 14.
Okay, so some broken teeth you tried to buy into some chain.
I have a Skeins of Fate that I can replace any attack roll, saving throw, or ability check made by a creature I can see. And I can give him, and I rolled these at the start of the session, I can give him a 17 on the die.
What does that make it, Nico?
A 17 on the die.
23, sorry.
23? Okay. All right, let's see. 26.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and for the 14.
But that was she replaced the 14. Oh, you replaced the other one.
Oh, I thought, yeah.
The crit fail.
Yeah,
Okay.
I assumed.
Yep. Okay. No worries. Let me see. Roll again. 11. Fucking hell, man. He's got +9.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm grabbing him with one hand and like grappling him with my teeth in the other. Yes. I'm just gonna like try and put my like dead/burning weight on him and try and become prone with him in the pyre.
Oh, you'll take 2d6 fire damage as well.
Yep.
Start of your turn.
Do you want to roll that?
Yeah. 4.
Okay.
Okay. Goodman's men are like on Uthel's men, and they're trying to affect some sort of like change, but they're not trying to fight them because they know that like they'll be cursed if they initiate a fight. That's like that's not allowed. The Jarl was very clear on that fact, that there has been sorcery cast on him, and if his men start a fight, then he will be cursed, and they can't allow it. And so they're standing near to the fight, but they're not doing anything. They're just there. And they continue standing there. Phelan.
All right. At this point, yeah, there's like a wall of people and he doesn't have anything. So Balaam is going to do his best to try to start worming, if not downright pushing and punching his way through the crowd, trying to get to wherever his closest weapons would have been left before this started. Just trying to just shove people aside and get to the hall.
Yeah, I'd say yours are probably in the long hall, since you like live here. They're probably in the long hall.
Yeah, and I'll just use the movement dash action, whatever you need me to use to just get as far through that as I can.
Yep, I'm gonna say it's difficult terrain with the crowd or whatever, so you're doing your best to get there as quick as possible. You probably get to the doors of the long hall using a dash. Wagner, you're just like walk in, having a nice old time, a nice jog in the wilderness.
It's lovely. I think he's busy trying to like split up a fight between Gorm and Kval over like some jerky they've taken with them, and he's just looking out on the horizon. Lloyd, can I at least take a spot check from the hill that we're upon to see if I can see anything in the distance? Just one more time as we're walking, just so I can roll a dice. On a perception, that would be a modified 20.
Okay. You don't see like an army or anything. You don't see any groups of like scary looking dudes. Yeah, I'm afraid there's just nothing happening. Like it's just fine. It's just fine out here. I'm not going to make anything up.
No, that's fine, man.
Yeah, so you're pretty confident that they don't have like an army lurking.
Yep, we're just still heading back. Yep. Can't wait to have a nice fire.
Yeah, say goodbye to the girl. Havisla.
So Visla is making her way towards the witch, and she reaches to grab her, but I think it's jostled aside. But there's this spark of energy in her hand as she reaches and misses.
Okay, yeah, there's like some dudes between you and her. So maybe like you just about get to her, and then one of them's like, "Get the fuck," because they've like made a ring around her, and she's like closer to the inside of the pyre, and that's where Uthal and Thing are. So not quite a connection, but almost. Wiglaf and Bjorn continue to stand there protecting themselves. As again, it's been made very clear that no one's to break this peace, and it looks like Isvald is the aggressor, which doesn't sit well with most people. Okay, so the witch, she like reaches into the pyre, and she finds Uthal, puts a hand on him, and begins to like chant. At the same time, the Jotun is barreling his way through. He's like just pushing people aside, and they're just like out of the way, until finally he's like basically at the scene of all the madness, and he like looms over the Jarl's men, and they all just like look in terror. And he's going to swing the axe and kill several of them in that stroke. Just this of Jarl Goodman's men, because he thinks that's what's happening. He like looks into the fire. He cannot see what the hell's going on in there. And so he stands defensively there, waiting for the witch to do her thing. She will be on fire, and she will take damage for entering that area. 8. Finds the Jarl, chants, and there's like a and the Jarl Uthal is no longer there, nor is she. And that is that. They start to run, Uthal's men. They start to run for the gate as best they can, trying to push through the crowd with the Jotnet in front of them, making a path without too much issue. Isvald, the Karl is gone, seemingly, or the Jarl is gone, seemingly.
I have to take damage at the start of my turn to see if I even get a turn.
Fair. Oh, yeah. Pray to the Allfather. 5.
Fire roars, and the Jotun just cuts a swathe with the axe, like cutting down men. And you see like final like part of it collapse. And then bursting out of the inferno on fire. Isvald runs towards the Jotun and like leaps at the last to try and drive the flaming sword into him.
Fuck yes.
The last act.
Give
So
you
that will be
inspiration.
blind. So disadvantage. Okay. Oh man, it would have been a crit because I got a 19 on 1, but instead it will be a 22 to hit. Sorry, 21 to hit.
Yeah.
Nico, do you have inspiration?
Yeah, I just gave you.
Yeah. But it wouldn't help me in that situation. Oh, yes, it will. Oh, I see. Oh, well, what's done is done. So he's going to take 5 slashing damage, and I get to grapple him for a bonus. That's going to be a 24 against the Jotun.
He gets a 32.
Fuck. I was hoping to get him on fire too.
Yeah.
Now, because I covered myself in the Yarl with oil, we're still on fire, I assume, even though we're out of the
Yes.
frying.
Yep. Like he was covered in oil as much as you are, so he's definitely still on fire. He's just not here anymore. And even as you like are like clinging onto the Jotun, you can see like the oil is rubbing on him, and he starts to be on fire. He does not enjoy that. Okay, nice.
I think at this stage too, for my interaction, I'm just going to cast the sword away.
Okay.
So that like someone, like so the Yell's men, at least one of them, if he wants to get burnt hands, will have a fine sword to use.
Yeah. Having seen the Jotun come in here and attack, the Jarl is like, now we're defending ourselves, and then he like sends his men forward, and they like run forward. Again, not armed. No one's armed, except for one of them, who picks up the sword. It's Ekil Wildeye picks up the sword, and his hands are like burning, but he like nonetheless picks it up, and he like swings at like the kneecap. Not of the Outnet. He doesn't think that that's a reasonable approach. Like he's not going to kill this thing, but he might kill one of the men who are with him, and he's going to swing that sword at him. Rug of the Red. For a hit and a hit. So 2 hits. 2 slashes in at this guy's leg. He's not dead, but he's wounded. And Uthal's men are just trying to run for it as best as they can now. Goodman's men are like rushing forward, and they're trying to like grapple and like bash them as best they can. Although it's very hard to work with a Jotun there who can like break your neck with a backhand. And so there's a lot of fear to be overcome. Phelan, you're in the long haul. You've managed to grab your sword at least.
Yeah, with that side, I imagine seeing the men now fleeing, having missed that part of it. is just going to give a shout over the crowd to Waldeye, any of the other men nearby him, to take them down. So I'm just going to use so Wildeye and whatever the other 3 most fearsome people nearby him will all get to make attacks.
Okay.
Or attacks total.
Okay, so Red Rugga, who had had his kneecap kind of smashed a little bit, he's like a little bit slower than the rest. As the rest of them are running, like these 4 just like leap on him. 2 of them like grab him, pin him on the ground, and Ekil like inverts the sword, just stabs it through his chest, killing him. He like pulls the sword free, and he's like, onward! But they're running. Wagner, just walking. Yep. Visla.
Visla, giving up on the witch, will reach her hand out and try and grasp onto one of Uthel's men who's nearby.
Sure.
Who's attacking. How does a crit work on a magic spell?
Don't know yet. What is the spell?
It's Shocking Grasp.
Okay. I don't have a table for it. So do the damage, and I'll.
What about that wiggy crit generator that Locrius secreted us that time with the
that's true.
different element types of crits on it?
Ooh.
If I can find it. Is there a magic? Flame and energy. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so roll me your location with a d12.
Okay. That's a 10.
Okay, and a d20.
That one's a 3.
Okay, torso.
Oh yeah, is he wearing metal?
No, Rugga fights like naked, basically.
Oh, I wasn't getting Rugga. I was getting someone else who was standing.
Oh, Rugga's dead. Sorry, yeah. Let's see. I guess they were allowed in with armor, weren't they? So probably yes. Okay, it impacts into the target's belly, stunning him until the end of his next turn.
Okay, and he takes 5 damage.
Okay, he takes 5. Total?
It's a cantrip.
All right. So that was Visla. So Wiglaf and Bjorn now send their men forward too, to try and help as best they can. It seems like they're putting themselves in the way, so there's not really an escape anymore. Like the Jotnet is going to continue to run, because who's going to stop him? The rest of them, though, know they're not going to make it out of here, and they surrender. One of them calls out, "We came here in peace. We did not break that peace. You did. Gods will curse you for this. Will not die in vain." So it's up to you if you want to slaughter them. The Jotnek just continues running, and it's just like walking, smashing through like buildings and stuff on his way out. He's much faster, obviously, than a normal person. And in all the chaos, I think it's probably safe to say that he is going to get away. Or that you would let him get away, probably is the better way to say it, like he's going to fight him. But the rest of them have basically surrendered in the... there's no sign of Uthal or the witch. Isvald.
You roll my 5 damage.
Oh, yes, sir. Let's see. 5 again.
Isvald like slowly like crumples to the ground, like reaching out, like gnawing, trying to get hold of an Uthal that's no longer there. Eventually, just muscles pop along with his eyes, and he twists into like a gnarled, fetal crisp.
No weapon in your hand.
Reaching for the for that sword that was
Sword.
picked up by Wild Eye, so
Yeah.
no.
Oh, Lord. Oh my God.
And I ordered my attendant away, I imagined,
Yeah.
before this. Otherwise, he would have perhaps quickly grabbed a blade to put it there.
Yeah. That's grim. What is your guys' approach? Are you going to murder these men who surrendered, who have already been attacked under a peace branch, or are you going to imprison them?
What's the Jarl doing?
He's like getting his men in position to like make sure they don't go anywhere and make sure they don't escape. Basically.
And Wisla has no desire to anger the gods and slaughter men who came here peacefully. But she knows she couldn't stop anyone who wanted to.
Phelan, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so Phelan kind of he worked his way back through the crowd. Does not bring up his weapon. So strategically bad, but he'll kind of walk up and say, "These men have done nothing to earn slaughter. They did nothing to protest. They came here peacefully. One of our own attacked and seen. I don't think it right that we end their lives under a peaceful meeting."
The gods would not look well on those who break the bonds of peace.
Okay. So Wagner, I guess you would. Yeah, you probably see it.
Do I see a Jotun running
yeah.
towards us? Oh, fucking
Yeah,
hell.
you probably see. I guess initially you're like, "Oh, that's a big man," but it keeps getting bigger. He's like running down the road that you're walking up now at this stage because you're not coming back secretly, right? I assume.
Yeah.
He's just like running away from the village. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wagner stops and he puts a hand out to Gorm and Kval, who are still bickering, but their bickering sort of fades into nothing as they behold this gargantuan thing running towards us. Does it look like it's running in fear?
I guess you think that this thing has never known fear.
Oh, fuck. Wagner's going to draw his weapons and he's going to hold his ground.
Okay, you can see it. It's probably a couple of 100 feet away at this stage still. But it's approaching real quick. So you have another turn to figure it out.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to need to plan. Give me a minute.
Wisla.
Wisla looks to the Jarl and she says, "These lands were Karl Yngvar's. But these men belong to his enemy as well as your own. I would not see them dead on my watch. But as Jarl, you are free to do with them as you wish.
Am I? Thank you. What a fucking disaster, he says. Man comes in here under a branch of peace. For the first time in living memory was there a chance to speak with Uthal and possibly come to some sort of arrangement. And then this maniac drags him into a fucking fire. And now there are men dead on this funeral day. I don't know. Lock them up for now. Okay. We'll go back to Wagner. 50 feet. You can hear like the footsteps. You can see that he has this like, I mean, what to him is a hand axe, but to you is not a hand axe. Like at his belt, because he wasn't allowed in the first place, so he still has his weapons, and he's just like running, and there's just like this sort of fluidity to his run that you wouldn't expect from something so large. And you can feel like the ground shaking. You already hear like the of his breathing.
And Vagnar's going to do the only thing that he thinks he can. And he, at 50 feet, is sure the thing will hear him. He bellows into the night. Jotunet, why do you flee? And he's going to like call out to this creature to sort of try and get his attention.
He would stop. This big like rut in the dirt from when he skids to a stop. Flee. Your people betrayed some oath, attacked my Jarl, tried to burn him. They are gone. He is safe. And now I am leaving.
Wagner looks down as if it's an effort to meet this thing's eyes. And then he brushes aside the hair from his forehead to show his face, and he says, I have no people.
You. What did you do?
Something that I've paid for. Do not run. Do not retreat. I'm sure there is a way that this can be parlayed over.
Don't be stupid. Impossible now. How often has Uthal come to these lands, not intending to raid? Almost never. And now he comes and does that, and is attacked. Under peaceable terms. You fucking people.
Do you blame them?
It's their gods, not mine. Mine would not forgive such a thing.
Vagnar's going to quickly shoot a look at Gorm and Kval. What are they doing? I don't want them to do something stupid.
They look like they're interested in pissing themselves.
Oh. Wagner just looks at him once again and he says, indeed, we have our gods, you have yours, and we should be judged thusly. What is your name?
You couldn't say it.
I thought that might be the case.
Nor would I give my name to one of you. Names have power.
Then Wagner gives a nod and he says, "A message to Colbrander. Would you take it to him for me?"
I suppose it depends on the message.
Tell him his time has come.
Seriously.
Do you see me smiling, Lieutenant?
You people. I'll give him your message.
Wagner nods and he makes a slight step out of the way of the Lieutenant. Also nearly pissing himself.
He turns to match your step and walks towards you. You'd best move.
Yep. Wagner sort of looks down at the snow and then looks towards the settlement, the fire rising higher and higher. And he does. He moves.
That's what I fucking thought. And he'll walk a few steps and then he'll just start jogging again.
Wagner is just shaking. Like from head to toe. He doesn't fully believe that he did that. And he looks over to Gorm and Kval and says, "Come on, you useless fucks," and starts moving with pace towards the settlement.
You can tell that Gorm was holding his breath for the duration of that, and as he starts jogging, he just like he was just terrified of even breathing, and they start to move with you.
And I will say the only reason that Wagner would have done that is because he's maybe have seen one before.
Yeah,
And he was still pissing himself with fear.
Right. So you make your way back towards the village, and we'll pick it up there in just a few minutes. I'm just going to go for a quick smoke, so we'll take another 5-minute break.
Holy fuck, man! This game.
Oh my gosh.
What a train wreck.
Nico! It's so good, but oh my gosh, it was so bad. It's so bad.
I'd wanted to, if I got to kill him in the fire, I was going to go, like, reach for the sword and go to Valhalla. But failed, do myself to hell and curse.
Oh, God.
It's going to be so bad.
And you cursed the rest of us.
They're calling you a nutcase,
And you
man.
started a war.
It's a blessing.
Yeah. War, the greatest blessing that a poor Carldom with no Carl can ask for.
Oh, it pulls all these ones into it.
Really back in the
What a fucking mess.
The
You are
understatement of
not
the year.
As soon
Oh
as
my
Lloyd said,
goodness.
as soon as he said, "Oh, and the Otanet starts running out," I'm like, "Oh fuck."
Well, at least now you know something happened.
But yet again, Gorman Kavala witness to my great deeds, Jeff.
Yeah, building up a reputation with,
Fuck,
with
man.
someone at least.
Just two people.
What was the fucking plan there, guys?
What,
had
what do you
no
mean,
plan.
guys?
Nico.
Don't even act like any of us other than Nico were involved in that. I was just trying to have a nice conversation, a nice somber funeral, send Uthal on his way, and start trying to plan. But no, we had to start a freaking war.
As far as disaster management goes, that was pretty well. That was pretty good on the fly. I think, like, that could have been worse.
Could
Where
it?
did he go? Where the fuck did he go?
I mean, you don't get to be Uthal Colbrand about walking into an enemy fortress and not having a plan, you know?
Yeah,
Got
but like,
several escape
I-
plans, clearly.
but I didn't know they could do that.
Save Kona, man.
That's part of what makes them so scary. You don't actually know what they can do in this one.
Fuck, man. I thought we could at least get one of them. It was like there were. Well, I suppose Rugger.
Yeah,
Got
we
Rugger.
got Rugga. Poor old Rugga.
Oh, that
Oh.
bastard.
That's
I
what he
wanted
gets,
to-
the traitorous bastard.
I wanted to see the light go out in his eyes, but more Coldbrander. Did he get burnt to fuck though, Lloyd? Has he got like a cool burn now?
Who knows?
Oh, I bet he has.
Not a scratch.
Sizzled like a chop.
And say the
His
witch is
beard will
gonna
be a little
just
shorter.
cast some weird old spell and just bring him right back up to normal.
It's time he got that pretty white cloak stained.
Yeah, that's burnt.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
gone.
that's pretty messed up.
Okay, so there's a little bit more calm. The Uthal's men are like brought into a house and like locked in there. And Wagner returns with Gorm and Kavarl, smelling a little bit of piss, but otherwise unharmed. The Jarl calls the various Karls and you who live here into the Long Hell immediately.
Yep, I'm there.
Yep, I just head straight in.
I think Wagner is trying to piece together what has happened and follows, trying to understand.
War is coming now. You understand that? It will affect all of us. Uthal is a Jarl, a well-connected Jarl.
Wagner is looking around and he noticed that there are a few people aren't there that were there before. He can't see where Uthal has gone, and he can't see Isvald either. And he's just wide-eyed looking around, trying to like get someone to tell him what's happened. Maybe he corners someone and he makes them tell him, but I don't know.
Yeah, Phelan can like fill you in quickly.
Yeah, I imagine that I would give you the super short rundown. With that, he would just turn to the Jarl.
The mention, however, because would I be right in saying then you're confused about where he's gone because Wagner was told by the Jotunet that he was safe. So, in that case, Vagnar's going to address them. He's going to speak freely, and he says, "The Jotunet fleeing. I faced him.
You what?
I faced him. He said that his lord was safe. Where is he?"
We don't know.
Fine.
He's gone. We saw him get pulled into the fire by Isvald. Saw Isvald run out, burned to a crisp. But no witch, no Uthal. We had some men dig around, no bodies.
Bjorn spits. Witchcraft.
Fagnar doesn't say anything. He just puts his hands in front of him, and he's clutching 2 fingers on his hand.
I'm not sure what drove Isvald to such idiocy, if I can speak frankly. But we need to come up with a plan. And soon.
We all wish Uthal was dead. Can't pretend that's not the truth. We had welcomed him in.
If Isval did as you say, then he was wise to do so. We could have killed him. You should have killed him.
Be quiet.
Bjorn is right. Witchcraft.
The attack will fall hardest in my lands, says Bjorn, and yours.
We'll need men. We hardly had enough before open war. We won't be even close now.
There's not much time. Sail somewhere. Find them. Hire them. Get them to follow you. Something.
Phelim is going to kind of rummage around some of his stuff in the hall as well as on his, and pull out the 2, both of them, and kind of holding them up in the light. However many men this can buy, I'll get him. Plus more if I can work out some other deal. If any of you have good connections, can provide me with a high quality, willing to do anything.
The Jarl scratches the back of his head. I will speak with Jarl Magnusson and Golden Fleece and see what I can arrange. Maybe they can lend us some warriors. In the meantime, if you're looking to hire warriors, then Gunland is the place to go, but it's so far, even with a ship. Maybe the Iron Islands. Maybe if you went to one of the cities, you could get men, but it will take a long time. The other place where you can find men... Go ahead.
Do we have another option? I'm open to it. But we can't do nothing. Even if we don't have time, we have to try something.
We are
Plus,
no
we just
further.
sit here and watch things burn.
We are no further than we were before. Men will only follow anyone for a certain time. This place still needs a leader.
You need a name for them to follow.
Aye.
Phelan's going to look over to Wisla. Then we should prepare to choose someone as soon as we're able to. We can organize the process.
Everything was already planned for tomorrow.
I vote we should proceed as planned.
Wasted hours.
Could we do it today? Would it be possible? He looks over to Visla to see if the logistics would even be feasible.
If you had any sense, Wagner chimes in, looking over at Visla, you would make an exception.
Visla ignores Wagner as per usual and looks from Phelim around the group of men gathered. She nods. Aye. It's early enough, we can do it today. I'll need some time, but
Good. So I don't know if you want me to make a traditions roll, Lloyd, or if I would just know. Like, is this something that you just like declare your candidacy for, or is there like a specific, like, how exactly does the process from here work? If Phelim would know.
It's literally like if you want to be the Karl, you like put yourself forward and explain why it should be you. You need somebody to second you. Like somebody has to be like, "Yep, that's a good idea." Otherwise, you're not allowed.
Yeah, with that, Phelim would just get straight to the point. He would stand up if he wasn't already. I put myself forward as an option. I have money, I can get men. I knew the Karl's business. I had treated with his eldermen regularly with the other warriors. I know these lands better than most.
For what it's worth. Actually, would me seconding him, would that count, Lloyd?
No, you're not a free man.
No, didn't think so. Ignore me. I didn't say anything.
But Arnvid would say, "Better you than me."
Phelim would just give a nod, knowing that he's signing himself up for hell, but is doing it anyway.
There will be others. And the Jarl says, "I would imagine that I'm not the only one who brought a candidate with me, but we'll see when the thing happens."
very well. We will clean up. We will bury the dead as best we can for now. But the thing will take place. It can be ready by dusk.
So that's what happens. People start cleaning up. They let the pyre burn for as long as it needs to before cleaning it up, and double and triple checking that there's no Uthal under there and no witch, but there's no sign. Beyond like burnt tufts of like that white fur, I guess nothing remains. And the courtyard is cleaned up. Whatever is left of the Karl is like gathered up and buried. And the thing is put together. So they put out some benches and stuff in a sort of vaguely circular shape, a little stage in the middle where somebody could stand and propose themselves. By that evening, the town is gathered. And only the people who live in this Karldom are allowed to vote, but anyone is allowed to put themselves forward. And so there's a couple of people, rumors already were happening about like who might go forward for whatever. But as it begins, and sacred like rites of Tyr and Odin and are like invoked. The first one to stand up is Karl Bjorn. And he says, "I present my son He is much like me. And to many of you, that will be a good thing. He's decisive in action. He values the old ways. He has no time for sorcery. He's a man of the gods, as we should all be. And so I present my son. And he just makes this little gesture and he stands up. He looks almost, like I said earlier, he looks very, very similar to Karl Bjorn. And his name I have lost. Oh yeah, Bjorndir. Put it in the chat for you. And he stands up and he says, I'd like to thank my father for those kind words. And hopefully I can live up to that. I'm not inexperienced. I've led many defense in my time. I know the Yskulfin. You need a man of action. You need a man who can get this place into order and keep you safe from what is to come. And that is me. And then he sits down, and there's like a sort of smattering of applause.
Does anybody stand behind him in support?
Yeah, his father.
Oh, okay, that counts. Okay. Yeah. Phelan would stand up. I present myself as an option. As Yarndir has so eloquently stated, time is of the essence. I've lived here in Ingvik for years. I knew its business well, and still know its business well. An option from outside does not have the time to properly integrate itself into Ingvik. I don't have time to learn the ways, the business. I already know them. Furthermore, I have wealth to back it up, kind of showing the 2 gold torques, to get men as quick as we can. I know these lands better than most. I've traveled them often. I know these people better than most. I know the enemy better than most. As has been said, we need decision and we need it fast. I'm better informed than any other options and better equipped to lead an army with experience in that as well. With that, I'll kind of stand aside and wait.
I stand with Phelan. He's an experienced man. He's one of us. Now, you might not think that. You might call him a foreigner. I certainly did for a long time. But he's done more to protect us than many of those who live here. Now, you might say that I, as your Karl's old champion, have a lot of weight, and that I should put myself forward, but I do believe, honestly, that Phelan is the better choice. And so if you want to stick with what the Karl would have done, this is the way to vote. And then this guy stands up, who you've never seen before. Like, not anyone recognizable. And he says, my name is Meinolf. And someone had to tell Uthal that the Karl was dead. And that was me. I've lived among you for years now. Uthal's a friend of mine. Almost like a brother to me. He's not a bad man. For years, for all of memory, we have raided you every year and we have brought you misery and suffering. It does not have to be the case. Every year, more of you die. There is more destruction and more death. It doesn't have to be this way. Make me your Karl. We'll join Uthal. And then we can be the ones doing the raiding. And we can be the ones who grow fat. We can be the ones who do not have to fear death, do not have to fear what comes across the sea every day. And he sits back down.
Vagnar's going to speak up. Again, very much aware that he's pushing his position. And he says, I know Uthal too. I have also lived among you for a short time, as you are all aware. And I can tell you all without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that this man, points to him, would have been here all along for this very reason. Uthal displays dissension amongst your number, and then he comes to break you. You listen to this man, you invite death to your doorstep.
Death is coming whether you listen to me or not. I can stop it. Do you think this paltry selection of warriors can do so?
There's no stopping them. You can't stop them. You're talking shit.
One of the people in the crowd says, but what if we are them? We don't have to stop them. Somebody else is like, yeah, why are we always getting fucked all the time, every year? You can see that some people are like enthused by this idea that they could be the ones doing the raiding and like not suffering every year.
Do you really think that Uthal would be so quick to invite us in after what's happened? We have no way to know that this isn't a trap. He puts this man in charge, leaves us weak, then storms in, makes the raiding all the easier. If this man's a friend of Uthal, that just means less reason to trust him.
Well, I stand for him, one of the people in the crowd says. There's like a long sort of silence and pause, and nobody else really steps forward, or nobody puts themselves forward for that sort of silence. A lot of people are looking at like Wagner, like, how come he was allowed to speak? He's not supposed to speak at the thing. Like, those aren't the rules. Does anyone give a fuck about the rules anymore?
Wisla catches some of those glances and says, "Quiet, thrall. You have no place to speak here." But
A man
Vagnar's...
I owed a great debt to died to stop that monster. That is what I wish to say. And then, yeah, he steps back.
Yeah, there was no malice in her words the first time, but when you try and speak again, she narrows her eyes at you. Like, don't push it.
So the wind kind of like howls and there's like just the sort of sound of like flapping fabric. Like people stand sort of grim faced, like looking around for anyone else to put themselves forward, but it doesn't seem like anyone else is.
Visla would kind of look to see where the Jarl is. He'd said he'd brought a candidate.
Yeah, he's standing in the back and he's like watching, but he hasn't said anything. He hasn't put anyone forward, so maybe he's thought better of it, or he's like changed his mind looking at the situation. So he just kind of watches, and he can see you looking at him, and he just like imperceptibly kind of like shakes his head.
She'll turn her gaze away and look back over the crowd, trying to sense where people are leaning, particularly are leaning.
Yeah, you can make me an insight.
I mean, technically I can, but okay, it's a 14. That's not as bad as I thought.
It's hard to know. I think reaction-wise, you think that way more people were like into the idea of Meinolf than you thought was possible. So like people feel desperate, particularly after like what had just happened. And like seeing Jotunnet in here, like killing people, seeing Uthal like in the walls of the place. Like many of them are just like they don't want to go to war. They just want it to be over. Not too many were keen on Bjorn's son, it looks like. And it wasn't like loads of them were keen on Meinolf, but more than you thought, you know? Like the feeling obviously is one of like despair.
Visla will step forward and looking at Meinolf first, she will then turn to the people and address them. You have before you 3 choices. One, which offers fealty to an enemy, which would push the violence, the struggle that we have so long fought against, down to our brothers, to our sisters, to our family, to our friends. And then we would be those who grieve, those hated, those feared. Another, an outsider. A son like his father, a good leader no doubt. But these were Yngvar's lands. This is Yngvik. And Yngvar trusted in the gods, trusted in their ways, and trusted in the magics, in the runes, and in the dreams sent to me. I would see Yngvar's ways through. But I could promise that Bjorn's son will do things quite differently. And I, at least, would make my home elsewhere. Your third choice is a foreigner, yes. But one who has lived among us, who has married one of our own, who has a son growing up here in Yngvik. How then can he be an outsider? Yngvar's own champion stands with him. As do I. She steps back.
So the crowd are like thinking about it. You can see, and there's like mutters or whatever, and it's done by hands. People can't read, so So people are given an amount of time to like think about it, and then you'll basically ask them, like, all in favor of this person, raise your hand.
And once they kind of start looking like they're all thinking so hard, and they seem to be looking expectantly like their minds are made up, Visla would step forward. All in favor of Meinolf. Race.
So there's a bunch of hands shoot up. It looks to be about 40 of them. And there's about 250 people live in the...
Visla makes a careful count, and with somebody acting as kind of a scribe, takes tally of it, making sure to have a second person counting as well to verify.
So
Probably one of the Jarl's men or something.
Right. And once they've voted, they have to leave, so they don't put their hand up again.
So once those have filed out, says, all those in favor of Bjarndir Bjornsson.
There's a
Raise.
big hubbub, lots of hands go up. The count is slow, but it's about 105.
She makes sure to count very carefully. And then once those have left, she looks around. There's still some confusion because you can still see some of the men of the other Karls who aren't allowed to vote still there, and it's hard to tell exactly how many are left. All those in favor of Phelim? Raise.
Yes, they do. It's a lot. Although counting it, you'll find it's 105.
Does that include me raising my hand too?
Yes, and Phelim, and Arnvid.
Visla is counting and realizing that it's the exact same number. And she looks at Arnvid. And she looks at Vagnar. And she looks at Arnvid.
And he's looking at you like, I already voted. What?
Arnvid, Vagnar could have a vote. Free him.
What? No. He's a shithead.
Aye. There's no doubting that.
No, he's my property. So like Arnvid is like looking at you and he's like, I don't want to give up this property that I own, this like useful slave that has been given to me by the now dead Karl. He seems unimpressed at the idea of freeing him. What do I get?
What do you wish?
Um, uh, mm, a night with you.
Aye.
All right. He like, Wagner, you have done your service to me justly and well, and I thus grant you freedom.
Wagner is standing there and he's kind of stunned for a moment, and he looks around as if making sure that everyone else assembled heard that. And then he looks over to Gorm, and he looks over to Kval, and then he looks over to Phelim, and then finally he looks at the Sather. At this rate, he's going to run out of fingers to owe people.
Wagner, you have a vote. I suggest you cast it.
And reading everything from the tone of your voice and the expression on your face, Wagner turns to the assembled crowd and says, Phelim.
So 106.
Wisla corroborates the tally with the Jarl's man who was assisting her. Phelim, 106. Bjornsson, 105. Mine are 40.
So there's like a big clap from the people who voted for Phelim. There's like a polite clap from the people who voted for Bjornsson. Even Bjornsson is like, yep, that's fair, that's fair. And the people who voted for Meinolf are just like looking quite angrily and like upset about it. But there's a celebration to be had, although short. The various Karls come over to you, Phelim, one at a time, and like do the politician style like handshake and like whisper something in your ear, basically one at a time. And like most of them are just like platitudes, like, "Oh, joyous day, congratulations, wonderful, yada yada yada." But the Earl says, "I'm going to need you more than I need the rest of these. Don't fail me."
I won't.
And then he like turns to the crowd and like lifts your hand up into the air, and he's like, "Yeah, all hail Karl!" As if it was all friendly and happy.
Yeah, and as Phelim's there, like he portrays this like excitement, like this kind of fortitude and excitement, and like ready to get to work, but like he can feel like the growing like pit in his stomach of this like now intense weight that he's just thrust upon himself. Like he knows that there's going to be a hell of a lot he's going to need to do now.
Wagner quickly, his eyes dart across the crowd to the man who had said he was friends with Uthral. Is he still there, Lloyd?
He is.
Then Wagner is going to go to Phelim and says, with your permission, myself, Gorm and Kval, shall intercept this individual. He may know more.
With kind of a smile, Phelim looks at you and says, "You're a free man now. Do what you want."
And with a smile, he turns, gives Gorm and Kval a nod, and starts approaching the man in a menacing fashion.
So there's a celebration had, the Karls and Jarl. You mourn the dead, you celebrate the new Karl. They eat way too much of your food. They drink way too much of your mead. But a day goes by, and then a second day of feasting, and then they all start to make their way back to where they're going. The Jarl tells you that he will speak with Magnusson, that Jarl over there, to see what he can do in terms of getting assistance. And he says that if you need a ship, you can come to his town and he will provide you with one. The other Karls kind of give you similar sort of platitudes, less genuine than the Jarl. Bjorn, son of all, says, "Congratulations, Ton. Must be a first."
Thank you. That's all he says. Just doesn't acknowledge the second part of it. It'll be good to work with you in the future.
Indeed. Congratulations. And then he just leaves, obviously pissed off about the situation. Yeah, and they all make their way to make their preparations for the coming war. Just before we finish, we'll have you, Vagnar and Gorm and Kavarl, in this sort of dank room, one of the rooms where you keep the cold meat, sort of a fridge, I guess. It's packed full of snow and stuff like that. You have this Meinolf guy. Just said he's still standing, and he's looking, and he's like, "What is this? I'm a free man."
I will have to correct you there. You're not a free man. Not while you possess information that will be useful for the new Karl.
Here's what I know. Uthal is a better tactician, a better warrior, a better general than any man from Elblot has ever been. And I know that he has hordes of monsters up there that you could call men, generously speaking. But I wouldn't. And I know that he is well regarded in Iskolfin as a Jarl, and that his Karls and other Jarls nearby respect and fear him, and that the breaking of peace and the burning of his skin this will not be a good place to live for long.
It won't. Especially for folk like you. And he gives a nod, ordering Gorm and Kval. And he says, "Hold him."
They do.
Vagnar takes this man's hand and he puts it flat upon a table. And he says, "Kolbranda, you're right. He does use fear and tyranny. He is a superior tactician. But as we learned this evening, fire must be met with fire." And then he brings his war axe down upon two of the man's fingers.
What crime have I committed? Fucking psycho. Fuck. He's screaming. And then Gorm's like, "Shut it!" Punches him in the mouth, and then they start to beat him up a little, kick him on the ground.
Yep. And essentially from there, Vagnar is just going to keep, well, we won't go into it, but he's going to try and get as much information out of him as possible.
All right, so it kind of pans out on Gorm and Kavarl just kicking the shit out of this poor Meinolf man as his fingers bleed into the snow, and that's where we'll end today's session. I hope you guys enjoyed playing that, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it, those of you who did. I'll talk to you next time.